We just get out to this project. We're going to be painting all the walls in this entire house except for the closets. We brought all our supplies inside, set up a drop cloth, put our supplies on the drop cloth, and I walked around with the homeowner, answered any questions that they had right away, and then went around and took all of our before pictures with company cam. So at this point, the team lead is going to set a daily goal. The apprentice will then start laying drop cloths in the areas that they need to, and the team lead's going to go through the house and evaluate how much mud they need to mix up for pre-paint repairs. So pretty simple, spreading a drop cloth out. Just get it pulled tight to the corner. You don't want it real messy. These baseboards are nice and tall, so it makes it a little bit easier, but you don't want to be tripping over it, so don't have it wrinkled up. And then we're gonna push it down and tight to the edges. We didn't have to worry about this because the customer was moving and all of their furniture had been moved out of the home already, but in most cases there will be furniture on site and the customer will have it pushed to the center. Just make sure you get some 0.3 mil poly draped over the top of that and then lay your drop cloths around the perimeter. So to cover the floors for a basic bedroom, you're going to use a 3.5 by 12 drop cloth as your runner to cover this border here. And then you're also going to use that 3.5 by 12 drop cloth to cover your stairs. That's for interior wall painting. If you're going to be painting ceilings, you're going to be using a 9 by 12 drop cloth to cover the entirety of the floors. So everything here would get covered by a 9 by 12. Otherwise, use your runners if you're going to be painting interior walls. So some of the items that you're going to want to take care of as a pre-painting checklist is going to be these 5 things. So it's going to be drywall anchors and holes. We'll click on that link. It's going to show us a picture of what that kind of looks like. So a hole basically the size of a nail head. It goes all the way through the drywall. You want to take care of that before you apply any paint. If you have settling cracks, a lot of times you're going to see these above doorways or in between halls. Settling cracks like this, you're going to want to take care of that before you paint. We take care of that one of 2 ways. We either caulk it or we install tape and we mud. The instructions as to what you're going to need to do is going to be in the work order. And then you have bulges from pour repairs. This also is somewhat optional, and it will be listed in the work order if we're going to be repairing bulges in drywall. Then we have removing and installing new tape. So if we have a tape joint that's blistering or it's failing, we'll have to rip this out, this tape joint, and install new tape. And then we have large and medium hole repair. So if you have any holes that need to get patched with a new piece of drywall, for instance, this would be a California patch, you're going to want to take care of this patch before you apply any coats of paint. Repairs that you're going to make after you apply your first coat of paint is going to be your small drywall dings. So it's just going to be minor dents that haven't really gone all the way through. This is probably going to be the most common type of repair when we're doing residential repaints. And then you're also going to have nail pops. So that's just where the house may be shifted or somehow this nail has popped out, protruding from the surface a little bit and you can see it. So that would be something that you would possibly take care of after you apply your first coat of paint. This can be interchangeable. You can move this over here, but it depends on the condition of the walls and how dirty they are, how easy it is for you to see those nail pops. One of the reasons why I like to do the small drywall dings after the first coat of paint is because you're cleaning up the walls by getting that first coat of paint on there, and usually we're using an eggshell paint, so the shine of that paint kind of makes those small dings stand out more to you. So the most common repairs for the pre-painting checklist that you're going to have is these first 3. Right here. We do have to do these sometimes. We don't have this in the video, the following video. These types of repairs, we have a separate video and a separate SOP if you're going to have to remove and install new tape or you're going to have like a California patch. We'll put a link to that in the description below. And then you always have small drywall dings to repair on pretty much every project when you're doing a residential repaint. And as far as nail pops go, that's going to be something that we're going to communicate to the homeowner and make sure that they want us to do those. Some people, it just doesn't matter too much to them, so we won't include that in the work order. Whereas other people want to make sure that everything is repaired and all the nail pops are set and fixed. While your apprentice is getting all the drop cloths laid out, as a team lead, you're going to go through and evaluate the walls and figure out how much 20-minute mud, 45-minute mud, or maybe 5-minute mud you got to mix up to pre-fill any holes or maybe make a California patch here or there. Feeling to see if there's anything raised on the surface. If I feel anything, I want to push it down with my knife here, at the end of the knife. If you see nail pops, you can take a hammer to them and set them. The consistency of the quickset mud that you mix up, you're going to want to have it kind of like yogurt. You don't want it too thin because it'll shrink on you. And when you apply it, you're going to pin a tight coat and wipe off all the excess so you don't have a lot of sanding to do. Now we're going to show you how to fix cracks caused from settling. Again, there's two different ways you can do this. You can either do it with caulking or you can do it with tape and mud. We're going to show you how to do it with caulking. And you don't want to cut it off right there. You just want to get the very tip and maybe at like a 30-degree angle. And you want to have a wet rag with you too to wipe your finger off. This is a cracked settling joint that we're going to caulk above this doorway. And then I definitely don't want to leave like any excess on the wall. So that's where this 1.5-inch knife comes in. Now we'll show you an example of a drywall bulge and how we get that fixed. So a big bulge like this would likely happen if, let's say I had a nail pop or something I was trying to repair and I just laid a big coat of mud over the top and then I came back to sand it. And let's say I kind of just sanded it a little bit along the edges and then top coated it and then also used the semi-gloss paint like we have here. You're going to see these big bulges right here. That much mud isn't necessary, especially on a spot where maybe there's just a couple of dents. All you have to do is pin a tight coat, come back in 20 minutes, 15 minutes if it's a real thin coat, do another coat, and then all you have is a tiny bit to sand. All you have to do is sand off this tiny layer of mud so that you don't see anything proud on the surface. To get this fixed, we're going to install 80 grit onto our SurfBet 5-inch sander to work through the bulk of the material. And then we'll switch over to a 150 grit just to go over the surface real quick, make sure there's no scratch marks, and then do a little bit of mudding afterwards. So that's really all you need for that first coat. We'll come back after this is dried in 15 minutes and hit it with another coat, and then we'll lightly sand this area, and it'll be ready for primer and paint. Remember to start a box fan so those repairs dry down faster. And once you get done with that, you can start taking off all your covers. Next, we're going to start masking off all our trim and remove our outlet covers. Covers such as this, like a phone jack, we're going to remove the plate and then tape a screw to the plate and insert it back in there so we make sure we don't lose it. And then we're also going to remove or disassemble towel racks if we're going to be painting a bathroom. So I'm just going to take this screwdriver. This is in your painter's tool bag. And then this bit actually is inside your foreman tool bag. And you just come up underneath here, put it in there, get it loosened up to the point where it feels like it's gonna pop off of there. If you're having a lot of problems or maybe they stripped it out, don't try to get it off. In that case, just mask over the top of it. During or after the covers are removed and before you're able to mask off your trim, you want to go through and dust all your trim off. So we're using the frog tape, blue frog tape, drawing the tape out about 1 foot. I'm using the wall as the guide and bringing the tape down to the trim. Then I'm rolling the tape forward until it presses down. Now we get a nice clean line right here. Now it's important not to just go at it full force. I use a little bit of pressure. I'm barely pressing down. Now a little bit more pressure. Now a little bit more pressure. Basically 3 passes. I can go to the next section. Draw it out, drop, push it down. A little bit of pressure, a little bit more pressure, and I'm done. Take my knife, knife it back. It's gonna be a nice clean edge there. Put pressure on my finger there, pulling it out more than I need, and then pressing it into this corner here. Take my 1.5-inch knife, press it into that corner, snap my tape. Tape secured, knife back. Baseboards are done in this room. Dust off the tops of these windows. This house is pretty dusty. Just put it into this corner. Okay, so we got all the outlet covers off. Just put everything over in the windows. I like to get a piece of tape just over the top of a switch so that when we roll, if we get any splatter, it doesn't end up on that switch plate. And then I tried to take this off, but it felt like it was about to give. These are usually just put on with like a pressure fit. I didn't want to break it, so I ended up just masking around it. And the outlets, same kind of thing. Let's get some tape put over these. So when you're masking your trim to protect it when you're wall painting, most of the time in this case we had already painted the trim, so we're not going to have an issue. We're establishing a new line, and by doing that we're going to use the wall as the guide. In most cases you can use the wall as your guide to get everything masked off. Now in some cases you might have a situation where the wall paint came down and the previous painter who had painted it maybe established a line that was backed up a little bit. Maybe it was out here. In that case, you can't establish your line by using the wall because that line that they already established is backed up a little bit. So you want to make sure that you get your new coating of paint, of wall paint, to cover up more or less what they had painted. Now, if you get into a situation where the entire piece is covered with wall paint, that's where you probably want to talk to the homeowner. And maybe we can do something where they have the old trim paint and we can touch up that top edge before we mask it off and paint our walls. If it's just a tiny little line though, you're going to want to back it up and not use the wall as your guide. So you're going to want to take your line and bring it down with your hand here and establish your new line. It takes a little bit longer because you have to kind of bring it down by eye and establish your line and back it up a tiny bit. That way, when you get your new paint on and you take your tape off, you see your wall color and you see your trim color. You don't see a tiny little line of where maybe the old wall paint was in that corner. And here's an example of that where we have the three colors. We have that fine line, that's the old wall color. So the crew should have backed the tape up a little bit just to copy the line made from the previous paint application. With this glass, if it's a bigger pane of glass like this, I don't really want to remove it. I'd rather tape around the edges and just, there's a tiny little piece that we got to paint on each side. I'd rather do that than remove this. Same goes with the light, just mask around it up there. If it's a oval mirror where we can take off, I'll show you in the master bathroom because that is the case. You might just want to pop it off, it might be easier. Okay, so we got 72-inch hand masker plastic, 1.5 inch inner tape. I'll just go ahead and get this drawn out over the top of this vanity. Take it from the inner side, peel it out. Take this and tack it up here real quick. Doesn't move around on me. Wrap it around kind of the back side of the toilet here a little bit. Take the plastic out. Just pull this down. Go ahead. Come into these corners, you just want to get a little bit extra. Press it down. Keep your finger down tight so you can kind of round this corner. You might want to press a finger down in the corner while you're trying to pull this down. I'm just going to rip off a couple of 12-inch pieces of plastic. Now, you use plastic or paper. As long as you get something to cover up the tile. You're going to have a handrail to remove or mask. In this case, this handrail, we're going to leave it attached because it's fixed into this post right here. So ideally you take them off. You get them off, you put them downstairs out of the way. Since we have this area right here, whenever we roll, we're going to have a little bit of droplets coming down. This is 12-inch plastic. Let's put it over the top and then I'll probably just kind of tidy this up a little bit. If you had any joints to replace or you had a California patch that you installed, you're going to want to sand your drywall mud with a sander, an orbital sander hooked up to the Festool vacuum. Reason being is you're just going to be kicking off a lot more dust, and it's very easy to get that dust spread throughout someone's home. Any of the drywall anchors that you pre-filled by pinning a tight coat of mud, you can just sand those with a 360 sander or a sponge, because you're not going to have a lot of dust that kicks off. Before our first coat, we're going to hit this wall top to bottom. This concludes part 1 of interior wall painting. Now we're going to get into actually applying the paint.